What is happening, fam? It is your boy, the Sultan of Sativa, the Ayatollah of Indica, the Bobby Fischer of BHO, aka Willie the Cool Penguin, aka Ned Sparks, aka President of the United Bakes of America, Donald Blunt, aka Abraham Lincoln, aka Lord Bongtimore. And I'm here with another brand spanking new episode of the number one Cannabis on the planet, with a very special guest, friend of mine. He goes by the Babe Ruth of Breachers. He's the Unabomber of ultra running, also known as the Galileo of goat herders. Lord C. Chad Wright. What's happening, brother?
Lord C in the house, man. Hey, man, dude, you have a creative mind, Elliot. I mean, I feel like I should be interviewing you today, man. I mean, you hit me with that Lord C, way back in the day while we were out on mission together, and man, it's stuck. You're creative, dude.
Hey, that's I would be lying if I said when I came out on that mission, I was on a mission, and I figured the only way I could be able to interact with dudes that are doing the things that I want to be involved in is by putting where my money, where my mouth is, and getting out there and getting after it.
Well, we sure did that, brother. You showed up, and you showed up strong. And, man, I'll never forget that time we spent out in the woods together. Every one of those missions are special, but in every mission that we do, especially every rite of passage that we do, there's always, if we're lucky, there's a handful of people that really stick out. And, man, you stuck out to me. I mean, from the first time I saw you and we shook hands, because you don't look the same as everybody else looks. You can tell, you've lived some life, man. Without a doubt. And that was a good time, man. And I'm thankful to call you my friend today.
Man, that means a lot to me. I definitely have lived some life. And, I think one of the things that really drew me to what you had to say and what you guys were doing is how vastly different of a life that you and I have lived. But I think there's a lot of things that are very similar in the way we handle things, carry things in our relationships with others, the priority of a spiritual relationship, with our creator, and the more I've listened to your podcast and been doing my research paper on you, the more I see that stuff. And, I mean, it's just, when I got to experience it leading up to that, and I did an episode before the ROP. I told all my friends about it, for months. When you announced it in like April, it was for a June ROP right before my birthday. And, I was going through some shit in my personal life, as I think everybody that went on that mission is. And I checked my emails every day to see if I got a response for probably at least a month and a half, every day, because I was like, I spent a little time on my application. I wanted to give you a real analysis kind of who I was, let you know I was a team first form guy, an Andy Frisella, like 75 harder, live harder, and I wanted to put those skills to the test. And, when I had to deal with some shit. I mean, obviously, I had I tore my meniscus probably like 2 weeks before. And I really was thinking about like, well, maybe I could see if I can just credit that towards another one down the road. I was unsure how that might work. So I was like, no, I already paid for a rental. I'm going down. And if I got to hobble through the mountains, I'm doing it. And I said that jokingly to an extent. And when I got there and really got into the weeds there, that became more real than anything ever. I mean, the simplicity of that mission is insane. And I think about when you spoke about what the Rite of Passage did for you when you were in the Navy and you guys had that 24-hour moving, and you kind of got the idea while you were out on a hike with Brooke to go through those mountains. Like, I thought it was going to be way easier than it was. Is that something that you encounter a lot? Is that the common thought process?
Yeah. I think everybody thinks it's going to be everybody that shows up there. First of all, you made a good point. Everybody that shows up to do something like the ROP course is generally trying to work through something difficult in their life. And that's an amazing gift to me, man, because we very, very rarely get complacent people, people that are just comfortable with their average, everyday, run of the mill life. They're comfortable with who they are and what they've achieved. And most people that show up, and definitely everyone who makes it through that mission, are people who aren't happy with where they are. They have goals. They are working through some crap. And those are the types of people that I want to work with. And yeah, everybody that shows up, I think, thinks that it's actually going to be easier than it is. And as a matter of fact, to be honest with you, Elliot, every time I go out there as an instructor, I always think it's going to be easier than it is. And every time I do it, I'm like, holy crap, this is freaking hard, man. It's like even I forget how difficult it is. And it's crazy because when y'all are out there with me, I take a lot of pride in being an instructor. And so one of my goals always is to never show any weakness. My goal out there is to not only pour into you guys, but also be a shining example for you guys. And I try to make it look easy, but every time I do it, it's freaking hard, man, for me. And I've done it over and over and over again. And it surprises me every single time. And to be honest with you, I ask myself a lot of times, I'm like, you know what, man? There are a lot of ways that I can make a lot more money. So our speaking engagement fee at 307 Project is $30,000. So I can go give a 1 hour long speech and I can make $30,000 of profit. And the little weak part of me tries to creep in sometimes and say, during that ROP course, and say, Chad, why are you out here freaking doing this, man? You could just be somewhere giving a speech and you could actually make more money. It'd be way easier. And what keeps me going, it's not because I'm some tough, hard dude, man. What keeps me going is when it's over and I get to see how much you guys benefit from going through that. And that's what keeps me doing that mission, man. And it's such a freaking blessing, dude, because, if I go give a daggone speaking engagement somewhere, talking to some stinking real estate agents or some daggone salesmen or some crap, man, I'm going to tell them all this stuff, man, but they're not really going to get it. It's not really going to change them. Like maybe a few of them in there might, get a warm and fuzzy. And maybe one or two might actually take a few of the things I'm trying to teach them and actually apply it in their lives to produce change for the better. But when we go out on a mission, dude, together in real life and we suffer together, man, it produces real results and lasting change in people's lives, in people's families, in people's businesses. And man, what a freaking gift it is for me to be able to be a part of that. And I just can't stop. And it's for that reason. I just can't stop, man.
Well, and you mentioned you don't like to show any weakness. And it's so funny because there's one moment, it was either right before or right after the first resupply. And the trails, there was a bunch of rainwater in the where the wheel tire tracks were. And and Chili was right in front of me, and he sidestepped him and was walking on the outside out of formation to avoid walking through the water. And then I saw you look over at him and stomp through the entire trail of water with just a mad look on your face. And I was like, this. I mean, there was a few times where, it was like when I walked up and you're addressing everybody, talking to them, I was like, oh, this is a serious mission. Like, we're about to really be out here, and I don't think that had really fully hit until I was listening to you talk. You're talking about the food. I mean, having to like run on all that stuff all day. I mean, a lot of people's stomachs blew up. That was cool. I was actually terrified because I was like, oh, peanut butter Cliff Bars. Great. I love those. Then you're like, one guy shit his pants because all he ate was peanut butter Cliff Bars and didn't trust his team. I'm like, I didn't eat one Cliff Bar on that whole mission, and I could tell that you really go through the thought process of why am I doing this? Because in those wee hours when the fired up Chad comes out, that's only coming out from a place of these motherfuckers need to get it and stay serious about their mission and getting through the end. And you only do that if you're the guy that's setting the example and everyone else is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, And so I just really respect the way every one of you guys carried it out on that mission. Cause yeah, it's led by you, but I mean, bro, the tech guy helped me immensely learn a very valuable lesson while I was complaining about my feet or something. And he was like, Elliot, everybody's feeling that right now. Why don't you just not even talk about it or think about it? And I just was like, huh, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, man. Everybody, including me, dude. I mean, every time and by the way, man, thank you for giving me the opportunity to even talk about this with you, because this is the part that I don't get a lot of times is men like you that I get to spend time with out there. Like, I don't get the follow-up conversation. Like, hey, Elliot, like, what did this mean to you, man? Like, what was your experience? I don't ever get to have these conversations with people. And I don't know, I'm just feeling real thankful right now to hear these, these little bits from you. And yeah, man, that's a huge tool. You're exactly right, man. I've always called it not giving your pain a voice. And it really works, dude. I mean, it's like, when your mama used to tell you, if you don't got nothing good to say, don't say anything. That's true. And if you want to take it one step further, you say, hey, if you don't have anything good to say, force yourself to say something good. Like, find something good that you can talk about. And it'll completely change the trajectory of your mind and your actions. And it's a really, really powerful tool, dude. I can't tell you how many times this has worked for me in the arena of ultra running, which the ROP course is very similar to ultra running. But it has a lot more the ROP course has a lot more layers to it. Ultra running is a little more simplistic and it's a little more of an individual thing. But so many times in ultra running, I've been battling with someone or another competitor out there on a long race. And I'll listen to what them jokers are saying, man. And as soon as I hear somebody just say something small, man, like I'll ask them how their day's going. And even if they respond with something like, oh, it could be going better, something just small, I know when I hear that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to beat this joker. Like, there's no way this joker can win, man.
Yeah, man, I love it. Well, and I know it was such an interesting experience for me too, because it was like right around when we hit that just over a marathon, when we had gone off the trail and we're going back and forth. And like at that point, there were literal tears coming out of my eyes because I was in so much pain. Every step was like unbearable. All I could think of was like, quit, 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 quit. And then it was like, well, how do you actually quit right now? You'd have to at least wait until you get to a resupply, right? Which could be a couple more hours. So you got to do this shit anyway. And then I started running through every scenario where it's like, okay, this guy's going to ask me when I get home, did you do it? How was it? I'm like, I quit, my knee. And I have all these valid excuses, you know. Then I got to like my kids, and I could think about like my son and my little kids, and then being like, Daddy, how was your trip? And I'm like, oh, I can't tell them that I quit. Oh, Daddy quit, I was hurt. That's not the example I want to set,
Yep.
you know, like, so I
You
had
know
to,
what's crazy though, Elliot? You know, there's a lot of people out there though, man, that they just don't freaking care, dude. Like they don't care. Like if they, I mean, I see people quit all the time, and this started for me even in SEAL training, man. You know, that was I went through the same conversation with myself that you went through with yourself out on the ROP course, and you've probably went through with yourself many other times in life. You know, in SEAL training, there were a lot of freaking days, man, that just sucked, dude, and I didn't want to be there. And I have that same conversation, like, well, man, like, what am I going to say to my little brother? What am I going to say to my parents? What am I going to say to all these people that I told I'm going to do this thing? And, you know, how do you make somebody care? I haven't cracked the code on how to make someone care about their honor, about their reputation, about the example that they're setting for the people that look up to them. You know, I wish there was some way that you could make people care, but I saw people quit in SEAL training. I see people quit out at the ROP course. I mean, this last one we ran, the ROP course is getting harder, by the way, as I find little things to implement into the course to just break people's mind. This last one, I think we started with 26 or 27, and we only finished with maybe 10 or 11 people. So over 50% quit. Yeah, man. And I see these people quitting, and I'm like, you don't even care. Like, you don't you that's a problem. Like, that's a problem that you don't care that you're going to have to go and tell everybody that you quit. Like, you're just going to move past that. Well, I'm the type of person, man, that I just can't move past that. Like, you know?
I mean, I sacrificed a lot to come on that mission. I sold my motorcycle, you know, and that paid for a month of bills and my ROT mission, my car rental to get down there, you know, which I had accidentally booked like an electric car somehow. And I was like, had to run through all these hoops to get a different rental, didn't have enough money on my credit card, had to figure it out. I say, how much is this mission worth to me? And all I could think of is you on your podcast saying, I will teach you more about yourself in 24 hours than you could learn in 6 months doing anything else. And I said, I'm going to make sure this motherfucker delivers, you know? And so I moseyed on down to.
Thank you for holding me to a standard, man. I hope I met that standard for you.
I far surpassed it. You know, I had to get over some shit, right? Obviously, it was hard. It's hard to let go of your bag and ask other people on your team to carry it, especially knowing that they're also carrying their heavy bag, you know? And, but that's the shit that you have to do, right? I mean, for me, I had to bust out the old power of the spoken word. Do you know how like embarrassing it was in my head? Like, okay, you know, just start saying this shit. And so you got to say anything that you can to get through the next step, because otherwise I don't know how you're going to do it. And so like all that went out the window and to get into dinner strong, you know?
Well, yeah, man, but you understand, Elliot, like I tell people, I try to teach people that all the time when we talk about the power of the spoken word. I'll try to tell them like, hey, you actually have to use this. Like you actually, when crap is bad, you got to start speaking life into your situation, and you can't be embarrassed by that. Like it's going to feel weird. Like it's going to be, it's going to feel awkward at first, and people are going to look at you like you're crazy. And so I can tell people that, but they don't ever really freaking get it, man. But then when you actually have to do it to survive, and you actually you get that rep in where you're just like, you know what? Screw the embarrassment. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. My instructor said this is what works, and so I'm going to do it in spite of how I feel about it and how everybody else feels about it. And you get that rep in. Well, then the next time you have to bust out the power of the spoken word, it's going to be a little bit easier because you have more faith in what that's going to do for you. And, you know, talking about carrying the packs, man, that's the way every team works. And people just don't freaking get it until they actually are put in a situation where the burden is too heavy for them. And then they have to give some of that burden to somebody else that can take a little more. Right. And then, but we spread the load across the entire spectrum of the team so that the team can move the furthest, not so that the individual can move the furthest. It's getting the team, maximizing the daggone strength that is in the entire team. It's like becomes a single organism. And see, people don't freaking get this, man. I don't even think that you can't learn this from a book, man. You can't learn this from a speaking engagement. You can hear about it in a podcast, but you got to put yourself in a situation where you're forced to do that before it really clicks with you. And that's why I love actually being boots on the ground doing stuff. You know, I haven't written a book, man. And it's almost like because, you know, man, my life is like a freaking book, man. And my life is my book. And if you want to partake in what I have to offer, come and do some life with me. And I'm not saying I got it all figured out, by the way. I'm good at a few things. I'm only good at a few things. But those few things are the things that I'm passionate about sharing with other people and teaching other people. And that's why we do what we do, man.
Well, and I love it because I feel like things have grown for you so much over the last few years. You know, like I remember the first time I heard you on Real AF talking about like feeling frustrated, like people weren't coming out to train, you know, and then as I've watched you over the last few years, it's like, you know, y'all jokers are serious. I mean, the company's growing, the 307 project is growing. You guys are working towards a continuing to help people in such a way that honestly I was blown away because after we finished and had our after action report, I was just blown away because it wasn't just me that was feeling the way that I was feeling. I saw every other person that was out there felt the same way. It looked like everyone got what they were looking for out there. And the range of people and who they are and what their stories are was vast.
Yeah.
You know, and I was so impressed. Like it made me really evaluate that whole long drive back up to Pennsylvania, how I was selling myself short because I had saw how you guys had impacted people at such a level that like I knew I wasn't living up to my capabilities. You know, like that shit was fucking inspiring.
You know, we've been doing it for quite a while now, and you know, you talked about how 307 projects grown and this and that, and I think about that a lot of times, man. You know, it's a really strange thing because if you ask me how did you get from where you were when you got out of the Navy. So when I was discharged or medically retired from the Navy, I didn't know what the crap I was going to do, man. So you know what I did? I went and bought a 4x8 utility trailer and an old Toyota pickup and a lawnmower. And I started cutting people's grass. I started cutting people's grass, man. And not that there's anything wrong with that. You can make millions of dollars cutting grass, right? But for me, it wasn't fulfilling the calling that's on my life, which is to be a teacher. That is my true passion. And so we started like literally, dude, with $2,500. Me and Blake, we both had a little bit of extra money, and we pooled our cash together. Started with $2,500, bought a little bit of podcasting stuff, and made a couple of T-shirts. And like this month alone, I mean, we've shipped T-shirts all over the United States, man. We've trained hundreds and hundreds of people. Like we have over 300 and something podcast episodes. Like, how on earth did this freaking happen, man? Like, I didn't have some master plan. Like there's never been a plan. And I'm not saying that everybody should operate this way, but I just tell it for the sake of the fact that, like, just start. That's the only way I can explain it is we just started trying to do something that fit within the passion that we have for teaching and helping people and making people better. We just started trying to do this thing. And then over the years, man, it's just been a series of yeses. Like anytime an opportunity has presented itself, the answer has been yes for the last 4 years, you know. Andy Frisella hits me up, wants me to come do a podcast with him. Well, the answer is yes. Somebody wants me to come here and give a speech or something like this. And even this is back in the early days when didn't nobody pay me to speak. The answer was yes. It was like just a series of yeses and saying yeses to opportunities as they presented themselves. And even if it cost me money, it cost me money. But I still said yes, and I pay my own travel, and I pour myself out, and I would do the best, whether I was talking to one person or whether I was talking to 100 people. And it's like that. It's just compiled, but it's taken years and years and years. I remember a time when I almost quit doing my podcast, man, because nobody was listening to my podcast. I mean, I remember in the early days of podcasting. I mean, I would upload a podcast, man, freaking 6 people would listen to it. And I almost quit doing that. And my wife held me accountable and said, no, man, you made a commitment. You need to keep putting these episodes out. It doesn't matter if 5 people are listening to it or 5 million people are listening to it. And so thank God I had her in my life, and I just kept showing up. Kept doing the best I can, and I got better over time. And that's all it's been. There still ain't a plan. I don't know where this is going, man. I ask myself that all the time. Where is this going? I don't freaking know where it's going. But when I started, I didn't know it was going to get to where we are today. So I don't need to know where we're going 5 years down the road. I just need to keep freaking showing up, man. And I need to keep giving it my best every single day and every single time an opportunity that comes up to move the mission forward. It doesn't matter if it costs me money. It doesn't matter how much work it's going to take. I need to say yes to that and keep moving forward. And that's the only way I can explain how we got here, man.
I think that's great, man. And it seems like a common theme just from listening to you and, kind of knowing some of your story. It's like you had people in your life that hold you accountable to a standard. It's like Blake, when you and Brooke were having issues from her addiction, and you're all like, I'm done with this. And Blake tells you, nah, man, that's your wife. You,
Yeah.
you made a commitment, right? Whether it's thick or thin, sickness and in health. She is sick. You need to be with her. Her telling you, this is what you said you were going to do it. And I see so many people just around that don't have people like that to hold them accountable to a certain standard. Honestly, when I have my own struggles with addiction, I've been through that. I've been a willing, active participant in the drug war. And when I got clean, that was where I started to learn personal accountability, how to let good men know who I was and be able to call me on my bullshit. And throughout the last, I've been off heroin for almost 13 years now. And that whole time, like, things have changed. But no matter what, I've always had a good rotation of men that I can count on that are going to hold me accountable. And when I start talking some crazy shit, they could say, no, 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 no. What's going on? Because you
Man,
said you were going to do this.
Yeah, man, praise the Lord for that, man. 13 years. Praise the Lord, brother. I mean, thank you for sharing that with me, by the way. Yeah, a lot of times we think that we're going to get somewhere by way of our own power, by way of our own like skills or our own knowledge, and it's like, man, there's so many holes in my game. Like I have got to have the right people around me, and I've got to give those people permission to do exactly what you said, and that is to freaking call me out, man. And a lot of times when people call me out, my advisors, my people, I'm not talking about some freaking head on the internet, man. I mean, when somebody that matters calls me out, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of times it pisses me off, man. And a lot of time I want to defend my position, like, no, I'm acting this way, or I'm making this decision for this reason. But usually after I kind of go back, I take a minute, I think about what they were talking about. I'll usually snap out of that. And usually the brother who is who's calling out my bull crap, they're usually always right and I'm usually wrong in these scenarios, because the man that's calling me out, he holds that authority with honor. So he's thought about, before he comes to me, he's thought about it before he didn't just come to me, off a whim. He'd been watching me for a while, and he's thought about what is this joker doing? Okay, that's not good. Okay, how do I need to come to him? What do I need to say to? And so by the time they approach me and we have the conversation, they've thought it through, and they've identified some hole in my game, in my mindset, in my spiritual life, and they're right and I'm wrong, and that's the truth of the matter. And let me tell you, man, those people, you don't need many of them. You don't need many of them. Maybe two, even if you just got one. But you got to have at least one in your life that you're in intimate relationship with, or else, I'll speak for myself, I would have crashed and burned a long time ago, son. I ain't lying to you, man. I would have crashed and burned, brother.
I already know. And I think that was probably one of the most impactful parts of the rock. Because I tried to pull over and take a nap at one point on my ride home. I couldn't even sleep. I was amped up, even though I had been up since like 4:45 the day before, on a few hours of sleep. I couldn't sleep, because all I could think of was how that mission was 100% like it encompassed everything you need to stay clean for 24 hours. Like I related that to a recovery piece because like I've been through some shit in 12 and a half years. 2.5, I was 100% like bought into, the 12-step program, worked through the steps, definitely had some spiritual transformations as a result of working and living the principles within that. And even though I chose to start smoking weed again, and I definitely have a relationship with mushrooms. I've always felt cannabis and mushrooms as a gift from God. They just grow that way. We're supposed to have them. We have a whole receptor system for it. And but I lost the brotherhood and community element of those from the 12-step program. And that's common, right? Some people utilize cannabis for stuff, and you're kind of ousted in that world. So like the last 10 and a half years, it's been finding those things on my own, still using the same principles in having people, still keeping a daily inventory, building a conscious contact with God through prayer and meditation daily, helping others. I mean, man, I just heard you speaking on Wednesday about Derek,
Yeah.
the homeless man. And the way you talked about it and how that's never really been your thought process before, it blew my mind because for me, that's always my thought process. I've used that even as a crutch. When I feel bad, I find somebody that, I mean, I'm in Baltimore City most of the time. I lived here in Baltimore for 7 or 8 years before just moving up to Pennsylvania. And I mean, there's no shortage, right? I'm in a war zone. Every day they're trying to sell me something. I look like a prime candidate, right? But you meet people. Baltimore's a small city. And the neighborhood I was in, we had a business. We were right there, you know. And I want to share a story about one guy specifically, but like that's always been my thought processes because before the grace of God go I. I've been there. I was homeless in Philadelphia for a time. I had to live off of uh, the graciousness of others or steal shit. Um, and most people don't treat you like a human. And
Yeah.
so for me, that I have a weird relationship with that time in my life. It was very freeing in a lot of ways. But at the same time, you're like a dog chained to a leash when you're struggling with addiction, and I was not living in any way that's conducive to who I am now. So when that was the case, I felt like, when I got clean, I had to be at nothing, because even clean, I had 30 days clean on my 23rd birthday in a city I'd never lived in before, getting kicked out of a recovery house for not even for using, but just not following directions. That was when I had to realize like, oh, I'm the problem, and I had to go, I went to a noon meeting. I'll never forget it. And at the end of the meeting, I said, my name's Elliot. I'm new. I need help. And some guys, actually one of them, he ended up overdosing and dying. But at the time he had a year clean, he said, why don't you come to the beach with us? I went and hung out with them at the beach. They said we could drop you off your outpatient after. And they did, right? And after that, I was like, oh, I'm in here. And, like when I went on the ROP, all I could think of is like, if I had this shit at 23, I'd have never gone to a meeting again. I'd have been a changed man like that day. Like my plan now, I'm working on, trying to get some things together. A buddy of mine who's also had some of his own struggles, we're working on opening a recovery house, and like honestly, I'm trying to get them motherfuckers rounded up and on a van to Rome, Georgia when it happens to do the rock. Because it's like that shit changes you. If you've never done anything like that, that shit changes you.
Yeah, it does, man. If you've never done anything like that before, I know it changed me for sure. And you talking about how, how you think it could have a profound impact in using that evolution, using that mission at the right time for somebody that's early on in recovery. Man, dude, that's a thought you need to hang on to, man, because dude, here's the thing, dude. All the crap that I do, see, I don't try to claim anything as mine, right? Even if I came up with it. Like if I came up with something and a guy like you can take that idea and you want to take that idea and you want to put your own unique spin on it and you want to replicate it for the group of people who you can relate to in a special way that I can't relate to the way that you can. It's like, dude, take that and run with it, man. Like, because that specific mission is so simple. It's like you and a buddy, you guys can do that anywhere with people who you guys want to serve that I can't reach, and I'm going to tell you, man, helping, I don't know. It's just when I hear of anybody who is on a mission to help people get clean, that mission means so much to me because of the journey that I have walked with my wife through addiction. Like it's I don't know, man. It's such a big part of my story in our life, meaning mine and Brooke's life together. I'm just telling you, man, if you've got a heart for serving and helping and pouring into other people, people who want to get clean, you can reach those people on a way deeper level than I can, man, because I only understand it from the outside perspective. I don't understand what it's like to be in the body of the person who's going through that recovery process. And I just tell you, dude, if that's a tool, if that mission is a tool that you guys want to use to help people get clean, use it, man. Freaking use it, dude. You don't need me. Freaking use it.
That's rad. Well, and I that's what made me think it was such a cool mission, because you do have that perspective, and there are a lot of people that don't carry it the way that you did, and I think it's really an honorable way to carry things. And you made a commitment and you've wrote it out. And I look at, like, I really didn't even care to get into a whole ton of Navy SEAL stuff, because I know that's like just to me, like, yes, that was something that really was beneficial. I've gained a lot of benefit listening to you share your wisdom from those years and the things that you went through. And like, obviously when anybody goes through a BUDS, like, that's badass, right? I grew up with, like, the Navy SEALs were rad, like, but for me, I think about who you are and some of the things that you've done after that. And since that, to me, that's where shit really changes, and I look at who like, I listened to you say something the other day on your podcast. And I know I keep referencing it, but it's fresh in my mind. And you spoke on so many things that I think about and reflect on. But you were talking about how you don't want to be you don't want to be the person that kills things anymore,
Yeah.
and your relationship with those goats has changed you. I mean, I watched the Shaky Legs video. That was that was deep, and I mean, I've never felt that way personally about a goat, but you better believe every time I put a cat down in my life, I bawl like a damn baby.
Yeah, man.
I've even heard you reference possibly thinking about maybe bringing life into the planet, if that was a thing, which is not something I've heard you speak about before, which, first of all, as a father of three, good men gotta have babies,
Well, I
and so
look up
like,
to you for that. I look up to you for that, Elliot. Dude, I follow you. Obviously, I follow you on Instagram, and I just see how good of a father you are, man. I mean, from what you show us on Instagram, obviously, I'm not there with you, but from what you show us on Instagram, the time you spend with your children, and you're smiling, man, and you got them outside, and it's really inspiring to me. And yeah, dude, I mean, I'll tell you right now, brother, I am 10 times the man right now today. I am 10 times the man that I was ever while I was in the SEAL teams. It's the last 4 or 5 years. I got out in 2019. And so the last 4 years have just been this process of the Lord building me up and then just wrecking me, dude, just tearing me down to nothing, and then building me back up and building me back up a little bit more than I was before, and then just wrecking me. It's been hard, dude. It's been hard, but I don't want it to end, man. Like I talked about my counselor, Jeremy, the other day on the podcast,
oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
I told this joker, I'm like, man, this crap is hard, but I don't want to stop because I see what it's producing. And my personal ultimate goal is to be free from myself. And a lot of people can't understand that, man. A lot of people think that that's negative. A lot of people can't even begin to wrap their mind around it. But my goal is to be free from myself and all the stupid crap I've done, all the bad, all the hate, all the hatefulness, all that. Like I want to be free from all that, and I want to replace it with the heart of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And I want to live by way of that power and in that vein. And every little bit of me that exists is just holding me back. And like I can see the Holy Spirit of Christ has given me this vision, man, of how I can operate if I will just put myself truly to death. But that can't be done all at once. It's like I'm killing myself a little more every single day. And please don't take that, if you're listening, don't take that as negative. I have just arrived at the conclusion in my life that for me personally, that is the one thing I need to be set free from, is myself, my own anxieties, my own greed, my own hatred, my own freaking lavish needs and wants and all this stuff, man. And I want to operate, I want to operate that way. And as the Lord leads me through this process, I don't want it to stop. And I ask him, man, I asked the Lord, I'm like, Lord, please finish this work that you have started in me, because I know that even right now today, being a better man than I have ever been in my whole life, but even where I'm at today, like I am just getting started, dude. Like I'm barely scratching the surface, man. And I don't know what the Holy Spirit has for me. I don't know what the Lord has for me in my 40s, in my 50s, in my 60s. But holy smokes, dude, that's what I'm looking forward to, man.
Well, man, and first of all, let me say thank you. That is very kind of you to say about me with my kids. Honestly, I quit my job in a corporate retail setting to chase after some of my own passions right after my first kid, Charlie, was born. because I knew that they weren't gonna. No company is gonna look after me like I'm gonna look after me. And I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I learned a lot in retail, but the last like 6 years of my life has been a brutal beatdown, because of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Some of the industries that I've been in, the disconnect between, the mother of my kids and I, and like not having any money because it's all invested in the business, and like having the faith that shit's going to work out and be okay. And like, but just knowing this is what needs to be done right now to hammer away at the process, because I'm one call away, I'm one networking event, I'm one, conversation at the grocery store away from something busting wide the hell open, and really being
Yep.
able to like take my path further. And I got to be in position, and because I know that I have a greater purpose, and it has to be focused around serving others. It's always been that way for me. The times in which, to circle back to some of the shit we were talking about a little while ago, it's like if I would be having a hard day or whatever, because my kid's mother and I were arguing for 2 hours on the phone from the time I left the house, you know, for the next 2 hours, and I'm feeling like garbage because it's been like that every day for months. Uh, it would feel good when I walk down the street and, give some of the regular homeless guys, like, buy them something from the corner store, a couple of loose cigarettes, you know, um, shit like that, because it's like it just takes me outside of myself.
Yeah.
you know and I know that when I'm just focused on all this other poor me bullshit, right, it's like, okay, why can't I figure it out? It's like, well, first, the way to feel good is help somebody else, because what's the old saying? I was mad I had no shoes till I met a man who had no feet. And
That's
I
it, man.
I recently was at 7-Eleven I go to all the time, and this dude, and he kind of looked familiar, but I didn't place him right away. I was going in, just kind of get my coffee and go. And he stopped me because he said, "Hey, do you have any old half-eaten food or anything in your car that I could get to eat?" And I never heard somebody say that. Like, you want, and now I don't know if that was just a sales tactic, or if he was just so hungry that he would have eaten anything, including just some half-eaten crap I had in my van. And I said, "Nah, man, let me get you whatever you want." So he comes in, I get him like a gallon of water. Um, he was like, "Well, they didn't have any pizza ready." And he was like, "I can't eat anything else because I don't have teeth." He's an older man. He was probably in his 50s. I'm like, ask the 7-Eleven guy, "Hey, can you guys heat up a pizza for this guy? I'm going to buy it. Can you heat it up?" They said, "Yeah, no problem." So I heat him up the pizza. I get him a gallon of water. I'm like, "Hey, you smoke cigarettes?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What do you smoke?" He said, "Newports." I said, "Cool, I got you." Bought him a pack of Newports, gave him a little kit for the night, hot meal, gallon of water, pack of smokes. If you're a homeless man, that is the only thing better would have been if I had a pair of socks to give him, you know? And this dude dropped down to his knees, like, and I was like, "Yo, man, get up, get up. You don't have to like do that. You don't have to like thank me in that way." He's like, "I'm not thanking you. I'm praying for you." He said, "You answer my prayer tonight." And I like, and it was just wild because a friend of mine that lives in the area happened to walk in, another guy who I've tried to get on the path a little bit, overweight dude. And they walk in, they see this shit happening, and I'm like, "Oh, hold on, I can't talk right now. I'm dealing with this guy." And then I realized I'd given this dude water before in the neighborhood. I became his Facebook friend. He told me where he was camped at, and shit like that. It's like, it almost feels like a test to me, when I like, it's always like, it's like the hidden king posing as somebody else begging for $1, and you get a magic treat when you actually stop, and you're the guy that stops. And I got my treat that night. Somebody prayed for me because they felt that good about what I was doing for them. That shit
Yeah,
is
man.
real.
Yeah. It is,
So like,
man. It's for real. And you know, man, you talked about, you know, when that dude approached you and asked if you had some half-eaten food or something in your car, like I think that's all of our immediate response is like, oh, is this just a sales pitch, like you said? Like, but I've come to the conclusion, like, it's not even my job to judge that. Like, it ain't even it's not even my job to try and figure out if does this person really need what they're asking for, or are they just trying to take advantage of me? Like, it's my job to do what is right, which is if that person tells me that they have a need and I can meet that need for them, then the right thing to do is to meet that need for them. And when I do that, if they don't do the right thing with whatever it is I pass along to them, like, that's not on me, man. So I've even, you know, when I was sitting out there with Derek the other day and he asked me for some money, and I asked Derek, I said, Derek, you ain't gonna buy no drugs and alcohol with that money if I give it to you, are you? And right after I said that, I immediately regretted saying that, man, because first of all, that probably made him feel not good. That I had some thought that maybe that's what he was going to do with the money that I gave him. And second of all, I thought, Chad, you fool. It don't matter what it's not for you to judge what he does with that. You got to take the man for what he's saying. You got to take him for his word and meet the need for him. And then you just got to let things go from there. Now, if this person constantly abuses that and shows you that, you know, by way of you giving them money, it's actually hurting them, well, you know, then you use common sense and you say, okay, well, maybe I should back off of this for this person's own well-being. But initially, when you're just building a relationship or you're running into somebody that you don't know anything about them, just meet the freaking need, man, and let the chips fall where they may, you know? So that's something that I've just recently learned, you know, because we all want to say, well, you know, this joker's just trying to take advantage of me. And I see people commenting online all the time, oh, you shouldn't give a homeless person some money, man. You know, they have all sorts of resources that it's become a pretty profitable thing to claim to be homeless and all this crap. And I'm like, y'all jokers ain't got a freaking people are so stupid, man. I hate to be mean, but
I mean,
yeah, man.
As someone who's eaten out of trash cans, I mean, I'll never forget being on South Street in Philly, and the Auntie Anne's, they would throw their trash out, but all the pretzels that they had left over, they would put in a separate bag inside the trash bag. So that when they put it out, we would go grab those jokers. Hopefully there was some cinnamon ones, you know, dope heads need that, got that sweet tooth. You know, and I learned a lot, right? Because if people were giving me money, I was spending it on drugs. If people were going to buy me food, I definitely was going to take it, you know, but I'll
Yeah.
never forget a guy buying me a cheesesteak with $100 bill and also giving me the change, you know, and that just like, I was choked up, you know, that was real, you know, because the streets aren't nice to you, you know. But I took that as an opportunity to learn, right? Like, I've gained some of the most valuable life experience I have sleeping under a bridge reading Sherlock Holmes. You know, it just is what it is. It was like,
legit, man.
Yeah, you know, and but I also believe, like, I've lost countless friends, people that I was close to. And so for me, it's just like I don't have survivor's guilt anymore. I dealt with that early. You know, but I do believe it is my purpose as somebody that has survived to spread a message that we can find a way to get better and feel good and comfortable in our own skin and have that death of self and let go of the shit that we have holding us back. I mean, I've been doing it for 12 years, you know.
I know that's right,
And
man.
I'm
Yeah, you're probably even, and that's the thing. That's what's so cool too, man. Like I said, I'm good at a few things, and this whole process of dying to myself is a very new thing for me, and I realize there's a lot of people that are way further along in this process than I am, that that might not look like I look, that might not look strong, and I'm not saying you're this person,
no, no, no,
but
no.
people who don't look as strong as me, people who might be, you know, really meek, or don't stand out as some, you know, spectacular public figure or something like this, but they're way further along in this process than I am, and I want to. Those are the type of people I want to be around. It's like you know, it's so cliche. You can't judge a book by its cover, and you know, you know, your journey, and really the journey that every addict has went through, the ones who survive and who get clean. I mean, that journey right there, dude. I watched my wife go through it. It's the most brutal thing I have ever witnessed another human being have to do, or choose to do. It's the
I'm
most brutal freaking thing, man. It makes all this SEAL training and all this stuff. Like, I would go through SEAL training 5 freaking times before I had to watch my wife go through what she had to go through in order to get clean, what she chose to go through in order to get clean. And I'm talking about, I would go through SEAL training 5 times before I even had to watch it again, let alone go through it my own self. That crap is brutal, man. And I can't
oh
imagine what you guys learn going through that.
yeah, I had to detox in jail. I had MRSA. They were talking about cutting my arm off, so I was like in an isolated medical unit, AC pumping 24 hours on a little mattress pad about this thick, wooliest blanket, most uncomfortable shit, just ill. And I remember one time screaming at him, like, I know you have methadone for the pregnant women, give it to me. And I got out of jail. This girl bailed me out, and I got high. It was Mother's Day weekend of 2011, and I wasn't allowed to stay with my mom, but I came over for dinner. That night I got high, and the next morning I went into rehab. And I didn't want to live that way. And I said, I'm gonna give this 6 months. I'm gonna do everything they tell me to do, and if in 6 months shit's not better, I'm gonna just go shoot dope until it kills me. And here we are, almost 13 years later.
Man,
And
praise the Lord, man.
it's like when I think about like gratitude, like I wake up, dude, and I have 3 healthy babies. The sun is shining on me. It's like my body works. I feel connected to God every day. And I'm excited to meet the challenges of each day, which there's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's feeling that, no matter where you're at. We live in a fucking weird time, but for me, it's just like, okay, so many people are dying from fentanyl. I need to find ways to really keep bettering myself, because if somebody can draw an inspiration from that in any way, then that can be what they need to go hit you up and send an application for a ROP, or start listening to somebody. Because really, when I started listening to these personal development guys like Andy, there was a part of me that was like, some of this is just watered down recovery stuff.
Yeah.
You listen to Jocko, it's like his big thing, it's like personal, extreme ownership, right? The number one line in program literature that I think of almost every day is, through our inability to accept personal responsibility, we end up creating our own problems, and that's something I've had to hold on to, because it's always comes down to what part did I play in this and what could I do differently in the situation next time. I've read Extreme Ownership,
That's
and
legit.
I'm like, did Jocko just go to some NA meetings and change up some verbiage?
Hey, man. Yeah, there's first of all, there's nothing new under the sun.
No, for sure.
Anything that we hear in today's time, anything you hear me talk about, like the power of the spoken word, or not giving your pain a voice, or all the stuff I talk about, they're all of the things that I talk about, are, including extreme ownership. It's all biblical concepts. It's all these are things that human beings figured out thousands and thousands of years ago. And there's just a few things out there that are they're true, they work. And anybody who's trying to overcome something that is extremely difficult are going to eventually be led to these few things that are absolutely necessary in order to overcome anything that is hard. And that's the thing about recovery. It's like you guys overcame, and I assume you have quite a few listeners that are probably in recovery at some point in the process. You guys have overcame, or you are overcoming, what I believe to be the most difficult thing to overcome on the planet. That's what I believe. That's what you guys are overcoming. And so you're led to these foundational truths like extreme ownership and accountability and all these things that everybody has to do. But you guys are led there by way of the journey you're on. And that's pretty cool to hear you kind of connect the two, because the things that work. And whether you're going through SEAL training, whether you're going through recovery, whether you're trying to build a multi-million-dollar business, the things that work in all aspects of difficult challenges in life. And people need to understand that, man. These concepts aren't unique to anybody. They just are truths, and they work. And so don't worship the man who you think came up with it. Just understand this thing's been going on for thousands of years. Let's apply it, and let's get through whatever bull crap we're going through.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's absolutely what it is. It's it really, the cool thing is, like, really that program was just like what was necessary. Like, I was humbled enough to be willing to try something different than what I had been doing, because for 23 years, my will and my way was not the move, and I think that's a cool thing too, that we kind of parallel on, is like around the time that you found Christ is also the same time that I really started embarking seriously on my own spiritual journey, and I think that it's kind of crazy when you talk about the like the dark energy in that place, and how the power of prayer changed the whole vibe. We used to go to this old, it was like a TB hospital at one point, a mental hospital at one point, and when you went in there, I mean, you could feel the energy. It's not right. There's a lot of spiritual darkness in there. And I don't think, like, you guys talk about it sometimes, maybe not super directly, but like, we live in a time where there is most definitely a lot of spiritual warfare going on and being imposed upon us as people, and I don't think that gets recognized enough.
No,
like
it doesn't, man. And that's why it's a lot of times so hard for people to fight, because if you don't know, if you don't know who your enemy is, and you don't understand your enemy, Like you're just swinging blindly. You're just hitting air, man. And you know, evil is a weird thing, and people, I don't know. It's almost like I talked about it a little bit on Truck Talk today on the episode that came out. It's almost like people think that evil is like just some thing that exists in like Lord of the Rings or some sci-fi movie or something. No, man, evil is a real force that is in play right here in reality. It's really strange, man. And I believe, obviously, because of the way that I believe that evil is actually, it's structured. I believe that Satan has a chain of command, and he has powers and principalities. Essentially, the way the Bible teaches, all Satan has done, he took everything that he saw God do, because Satan was an archangel. According to the Bible, Satan was an archangel of God. And so he served at the highest level with the creator of the universe. And so when Satan was cast out of the presence of God, he basically just took the same structure God used, the same chain of command, the same tactics, techniques, and procedures, and he just established his own kingdom, and is just utilizing the same structure in order to grip the world or move the world in an evil direction, as God used to establish goodness on the earth. And it's a real thing, dude. And yeah, that experience that I had overseas that really changed the trajectory of my life and led me to the point of finally accepting Christ. Like, that was real, dude. And there was a real, I know it sounds crazy. There was a being in that place. Like, it wasn't
Crazy to me.
even, yeah, it was a being that was basically producing this energy, this evil heaviness, but this was a specific being that was inhabiting this place that we were in, man. And you know, it sounds crazy until you see evil, and you don't have to see evil by way of some an encounter with some sort of demonic being. I mean, a lot of people see evil as it comes through and is acted out by other people. And there's just a lot of people walking around, especially in first world countries like we live in here in the U.S., that they don't believe in evil because they've never seen it. And so, therefore, they can't understand the things that are happening around them. They can't comprehend what is happening because they're missing half of the picture.
Well, and it's funny that you said that, because I was actually going to ask you in regards to evil acts being perpetrated by humans. I've been in I've lived some life. I've been in some situations I don't know how I got out of, to be honest, and other than a divine intervention, to be real about the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
But I've definitely stared evil in its face, and you can feel that, whether that's in the actions of another or in a specific location. So like,
Yep.
I 100% believe, and I think I first really started to understand this when I was a teenager and I started experimenting with mushrooms, because it takes away a lot of the ego. Well, if you fight it, it can be a problem. But that was when I really realized people's energy and started understanding that some people had an energy that resonated with me, others did not. And over time, especially throughout my addiction and some of the situations I was in, I mean, some of West Baltimore is a third world country. I mean, it is a war zone over there, and I spent a lot of time there. But when I think about it, people don't have that perspective, and they don't understand how evil is applied in a modern context.
Yep.
You know, and that, I think it's important that people can start distinguishing. How do you think people can start identifying those things? Like I said, for me, it took some mushrooms, but I know that's not everybody's path.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, getting exposed to what evil really looks like, just getting exposed to it. And that means you're going to have to be put into some uncomfortable situations and some uncomfortable scenarios and uncomfortable places. That's how I was exposed to it. Just being in really ugly places and but we're allowed to live here in the United States, at least right now. We're allowed to live this life where we're insulated from having to confront or see or witness anything firsthand that is just like, okay, there's no other explanation for that than pure freaking evil. And so nobody's ever exposed to it, man. And, looking back on my life, dude, I mean, all of the hardest times, the times that I was in places that I just did not want to be, the times that I made the biggest mistakes, the times that I was struggling the most, those are the most valuable times throughout my entire life. It's like there's been no value for me in the times where things were just pretty much going good, I got to look back on my life and be thankful for the crap, dude. And I know that's easy for me to say because I'm on the other end of it, at least for a little bit right now. And some of you guys are in the thick of it, but you have to understand, I'm not feeding you a line of bull crap, man. If you're in the thick of it, as long as you keep going, when you come out the other side, you're going to look back on what you're going through right now, and you're going to say, that's the most valuable portion of my life, because it's going to give you context for the rest of your life once you get on the other side of the crap that you're walking through right now. And people don't believe that, man. People don't believe that. But it opens your eyes. You got to go, you have got to walk through some freaking crap to wake up, man. And I'm thankful for the life that I've lived. The worst times, and I'm thankful for the good times now, because I've had bad times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you too, also kind of on some of the same topics. What do you feel? How do you feel about the? I mean, there's definitely powers that be that seem like they want to force fulfillments of biblical prophecy. Like, where is the line of reality on that just happening naturally, or is it the social engineering moving it that direction? How do you differentiate? Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, no, that's a deep question, man. A lot of people are not even intelligent enough to ask that question. So I commend you for doing that. I it's interesting because we were all created by a supernatural being, right? And this supernatural being that created all of this, a lot of times when we think about how, for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to call God, how he interacts with, or how the entire spectrum of time, or for the universe, his creation, like, how does that plan unfold? Like, is he making it happen? And I think a lot of times we expect supernatural things to happen because in order to move the timeline in the proper direction, we expect supernatural things to happen because our God is a supernatural God. He lives outside of time, space, and matter. But what's interesting is this supernatural God actually works through natural processes. 90%, I don't know, a lot of 99% of the time. Very rarely can we see an instance where we're like, okay, and moving humanity in a certain direction. Very few times do we have that. So I believe as the plan for this universe is unfolding, the actual nuts and bolts of it, the things, the decisions that are being made and in the engineering that is being done by humans in order to move things in the direction that God said it's going to go, that's the way things work. So do we say it's social engineering? Do we say it's people planning, it's people's plans and this and that that's moving things in this direction that the Bible says they're going to go? Well, yes, that's what's happening. I believe, though, that the individuals who are responsible for moving the timeline in the direction that the Bible says the timeline's going to move, which ultimately we're talking about things coming to one world government. We're talking about a single world ruler. We're talking about a bunch of different stuff. We're talking about constant pestilence and plagues and all this stuff toward the end of the age. I think these people that are moving the needle in that direction, those people, I don't even think that they know necessarily exactly what they're doing. I literally think that those people are being controlled by Satan. And I think that they're doing the things that they're doing, and they're moving the needle in the direction that the Bible says it's going to go in. But I think that those people that are responsible for that actually think that what they are doing is right because they are deceived. And so it's strange how a supernatural plan or timeline can play out in the natural, and it doesn't even look like it's being supernaturally influenced, but it is. Now, that's a freaking deep answer right there, and I hope somebody understands where my mind's going with that.
I think anybody listening to this is that's already familiar with where I'm at, is going to be right on similar pages for sure. For me, my experience really searching for truth. See, I grew up in Internet 1.0 era, back when it was uncensored and Google searches resulted in everything you were looking for. And I was in high school. My history teacher, Mr. Jarrett, he actually died like a year and a half ago. My band in high school, Kill Whitey, we wrote a song about him. But he was very much like, hey, if I teach you this lesson crap, I'll also, and you pay attention to that, or like pass the test, I'll teach you the real shit too. And so like he was constantly dropping nuggets on things to start looking up. I remember one, dude, Rex 84 has always stuck out. And I remember it's like Recreational Exercise 84. And it's basically about concentration camps that are already built in America. Walmart's turning into FEMA camps and having contracts with them. Now I'd assume Amazon too. Those like 40-foot concrete walls. And just always feeling like, oh, wow, some of this totalitarian one world government stuff that they talk about in the Bible, some of this stuff I hope this is just a game. And COVID really was like, oh, wow. Like I read Behold a Pale Horse. I read 1984 when I was 13. It's like these have always been ideas floating in my head, the ideas of freedom, God, what are we here for? I don't believe that they're telling us the truth about who we are and what we're meant to do. I don't believe really a lot of anything and at all of what we're taught and told, because you just start diving down the rabbit hole. And I feel like the last few years has led me a lot back to Christianity. And like, wow, some of this biblical prophecy stuff may be legit. Because say we are the center of the universe, right? Which I know is not a concept a lot of people like to talk about, and most people laugh off, right? But if we're the center of the universe and the sun, moon, and stars are inside of a firmament, and we were put here, created, which I think it should be very logical to believe in creation by a supernatural being, right? Sometimes I think me as a human, I can't fully comprehend what that is. But I don't need to. I know that the branches on a tree that help create the oxygen for me to breathe and my lungs have those same fractal brachial branches breathing out the carbon dioxide the tree needs. We are symbiotic with nature. Your eyeball looks like a galaxy. It's the window to the soul. You know, it's like these things within our body that are mimicked in nature. It's like something had to create that, and it is far superior to me, right? So it's like I just feel like there's a lot when it comes to like, okay, then why are we here? Why don't they want to tell us what's really going on?
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, this whole COVID thing, man, it's really a lot of people have woken up and changed their worldview and their perspective, and you're right, man. It's like it's really the Bible actually talks about how creation itself is evidence of a creator, and so we look around at creation, right, and we see that there's obviously intelligent design in all aspects of creation. I mean, down to the smallest element of creation. There is design in everything that is. In other words, nothing that is as complex as human life, as this universe, as the earth itself, something this complex is not produced from chaos, right? And so there is creative design, and I think you're right. That's very strong evidence for a creator if someone is willing to allow themselves to see that. And that's the first step, man. That's the first step. And, you know, what are we doing here? You know, I ponder that a lot too, man. And I have to go back to why, if I believe in the Bible, why did God even create us in the first place? Well, he created us in the first place because he wanted a being. He wanted to create more beings that just loved him, that were just in relationship with him. That's why he created us. So what are we supposed to be doing while we're here? We're supposed to just be loving the Lord, man. We're supposed to just be praising him, like glorifying him, loving him, and be imaging him. Like that's what we're supposed to be doing. And that sounds really simple, but when you get down to the root of the way that I believe, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, well, and I love how openly and freely you share your strong faith. You know, I think I mean, I know for me, I've really been it was something that has helped me over the last few years, listening to a bunch of your podcasts, re-explore the idea of Christianity, because I had to let go of all my little Catholic resentments and the weird shit that's there, and growing up in that realm, and understanding that, like, you know, the same as an NA meeting is not the same as the program, which is the 12 steps and the principles contained within those steps, right? It's not the meeting. That's just offering a fellowship of other people who have gone through the same shit you have, right? It's great and is awesome, but ultimately that's not the program. And you always relate, like, church is not a place that you go with four walls and a roof. It's the scripture and the lessons within it, and I think that's a very relatable way to put things.
Yeah, when we look at church, the church, right? When we look at that from a biblical perspective, which is how we should look at everything, we got to get our own little opinions and our own little thoughts out of everything, and we have to look at scripture. And first of all, the church belongs to Jesus Christ. The church it's his. It's not the Catholic Church. It don't belong to the Baptists. It don't belong to the Presbyterians. It don't belong to any denomination. The church belongs to Christ, Jesus, our Lord. And the church is the body of believers, all of his sons and daughters that are spread all across the face of the earth. That body of people who know and believe in Jesus Christ and serve Jesus Christ as Lord, that is the church. So when we talk about the church as a place that you can go, we're using the word church in a way that biblically it can't even be used. You can't go to something that is spread across the entire space face of the earth by these individuals who are being inhabited by the Spirit of Jesus Christ himself. It's a really hard concept, man, for people to grasp, especially here in America. So every concept of the church, other than what the Bible says about the church being the body of Christ, believers in Christ, men and women who are actually being possessed by the Holy Spirit of Christ and carrying out Christ's will here on earth, any concept other than that is what we would call religion. That's what we would call. It's people putting their own parameters. See, human beings like to worship other people. Human beings like to worship images and things. And that's been human nature going all the way back to the times of freaking Moses, man. When Moses led the Israelites out of Israel, what's one of the first things they did? They built a daggone calf and started sacrificing stuff to a graven image. That's what people naturally want to do. It's hard for them to understand that, like, it ain't about the building. It ain't about the image of a cross. It ain't about some freaking vestment that you might wear or some title that you might have. It has nothing to do with that, man. It's the body of Christ all across the earth. And it's interesting, man. A lot of us want to understand God before we say, okay, well, I'm gonna commit myself to following Christ. We want to understand God, and you hit on it earlier, Elliot. I want you to know something right now, man. You can't understand God. Like, you can't. This is freaking this is common sense. Something that has been created cannot fully understand the thing that created. Right? That's like saying if we went out here and built and put together a Ford truck, that thing that we put together, that we built, that we created, was going to fully understand the mind of the thing that created it. It's impossible. And this goes to I mentioned Moses earlier.
Yeah.
Moses was wandering around in the daggone desert before he went back to Egypt and brought the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery. He was wandering around in the desert, and he sees this burning bush, man. And he goes down there to that bush. Look, man, if you saw a burning bush that was on fire, but it wasn't burning, you would probably think, daggone, son, I got a hold of some bad weed. I got a hold of some bad mushrooms. I got to go check this thing out, son.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And so Moses seen this bush, man. He went down there and he said, I got to check this out. He went down there and God spoke to Moses there. And Moses said, well, God, who are you? And the God, the creator of the universe, responded, and he said, I am that I am. That's how God described himself to Moses. I am that I am. In other words, look here, Moses, you're just going to have to accept the fact that I am who I am, and you can't understand it because your mind can't grasp it, and your mouth cannot even formulate words that would come close to describing what I actually am, because you are a created being and I created you. And so don't ever think that you're going to arrive to a full understanding of the intricacies and the power and the magnificence of your creator and how he did everything, because it's impossible, man. So you have to accept that, and you got to move on from that. And man, I don't know. This is I could go deep with this conversation.
Hey.
I just wanted to let people know.
I love it, man. This is exactly the type of conversation that I like to have with people, and I felt you were a guy that's honest enough to have these types of conversations. That's why I'm so grateful you were willing to spend some time with me,
Well, man, I don't know. I definitely want to, I want to know more. I'm very interested too, Elliot, in the whole mushroom and the psychedelics and even it's interesting, man, because I've never done any drugs. I've never smoked weed, not a single time.
Not once.
I've never, not a single time, dude. So I have no idea. I've never, I've got a lot of buddies, veterans that are going to have this psychedelic experience and stuff like this. And I don't know, man, all that stuff is interesting to me.
Do you have,
but
could I
tying it, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, are there any specific, I hate to, there are a few things that I'm good at in this world. And one of them is handling psychedelic trips. I've been a pretty experienced psychonaut, as we in that realm call ourselves. And I started eating mushrooms when I was about 15, acid as well, which there's a difference. And I've experienced the whole spectrum of pretty much as far as that realm goes, and that really actually was kind of where my quest for God kind of led me at a point. And I know it's not, I read a quote from a lady, and it just has stuck with me because I was trying to put to words the way that I felt during some of these times when you're at like a full, like full on capacity. And she said, it feels like I was basking in God's love. And that was something that hit me right in the chest, because it's like, it's such a humbling experience, and you have to be mentally strong. And there's definitely parameters I like to have in place. I don't trip as much as I used to, but I do still have like I use a lot more microdoses with mushrooms now, because I haven't been on pharmaceuticals in 11 and a half years, probably close to 12 years. Like, I never really, like, I was on prescribed a bunch of different stuff. The only thing I really took regularly was Valium, because I liked how that mixed with my dope. But, when I got clean, it's so closely intertwined with the pharmaceutical industry. And I know what cannabis does for me. I know what a hard reset from drinking a smoothie with 5 grams of mushrooms is going to do for me after 6 hours of sitting on my yoga mat and getting in my zone and really evaluating who I am, where my struggles are right now. Like, I used to like to trip with people. Now I like to be alone so that I can really dive deep into who I am, find that death of self. The mushrooms give you an ability to put your ego aside and be willing to look at some of your serious character defects and your assets and understand that you're not as bad or as good as you think you are, and that you are here and you are having an experience like everyone else and you are connected to God. It reveals some different layers of our human experience. Like, I could easily say that after the first time I did it, things were different. Like, you start to, that's like definitely, like, we're already in a very similar mindset about a lot of things because of your experiences have led you to certain truths. And I'm sure some of your military experience has, you've seen certain things that are a reality of what governments do and how things are, right? Like, mushrooms led me on a quest for truth, right? And that ultimately is a quest for God and what it is for me to be here and what is my purpose. How do I engage in my calling and how can I be the best version of myself for others around me and anybody that could potentially encounter me. And, I have a lot of veteran friends myself that have engaged in many different dosings and I don't want to say rituals, but like psychedelic experiences that have deeply helped them. And I think the biggest thing for me, for a long time was that mushrooms gave me the ability to cry. Something happens the way that it like works where like your body is like excreting, like you're letting go of shit naturally and your body is letting go of these things physically. And for me, it's always been tears running down my face, whether I'm laughing hysterically or like happily crying or going through working through some sad shit. But it's always been
Yeah.
hard for me to cry, because when you're living a hard life, albeit a lot of it self-imposed, uh, you push that shit down and just keep trucking. You spoke about having periods of your life just blacked out, and you're like, do y'all understand what I'm talking about? I'm like, yeah, Chad, me. I've been through a lot of traumatic shit or shit that my brain found very stressful. And just like, I could tell you kind of a general gist of what was happening in that time frame of my life, but some of the real specific experiences, it'll be like something fucked up and then just a period of like kind of blackout after that.
Exactly, man.
Some from
Yeah, you
childhood,
nailed it, man.
some from the time I was using, some from even my relationship the last few years. I have a hard time remembering certain things. And like, I'm sure some of it could be blamed on some weed if you wanted to, but like I've spent many, many times examining these things in these periods because I think about how they've impacted me and what I need to do to move past them. Plus, I use them for fuel a lot of the time. The hard things I try to use, to dig deep within and, pull out of my cookie jar. But this shit is what it is. And so like the mushrooms help me discover who I am at my true nature, I feel like, and be open enough to get rid of any of the self shit to then, bring back things to work on.
Yeah. No, man. I mean, the question that keeps resonating in my mind and has been for the last couple of weeks, especially, man, because everything that you just described is I feel like is very much in alignment with the process that I am going through. And so the hard question that I keep like asking myself is all of those wonderful results that you that you just shared that you get from those experiences, can we achieve the same results without the substance? And I don't know that I don't know that anyone can answer that or not. And so it's like, I'm just wondering, like, can you achieve those same results of being able to, like you said, cry, being able to be very introspective, being able to really dig deep into what it is you need to dig into in order to be set free from yourself and the things that are binding you? Can we achieve those results without the use of a substance? That's the first question, and I think it would be assumed that if we were able to achieve those same results without a substance, I think it would probably be assumed that it would be more work and take a longer time. And I don't know. Again, this is just something I think about because I have guys that I served with that multiple have called me and, talked about their experiences with psychedelics and how, I mean, I've had guys even tell me like they had a conversation with God and this and that. And I have to believe them. I mean, they really believe in what they're saying. And so the first question was, can we achieve the same results without the substance? And then the second question is, I have to be totally open and honest with you about this. Can we trust the things that we receive while we are under the influence of a substance? Can we trust those things to be true and accurate? Because we're altering. And again, I've never done any of this stuff before. So that's why I'm so careful about talking about it. But like we're altering our perception of reality by way of the substance. So the things that we receive, can they be trusted because they are received in an altered state of reality? That I just don't know that people are having these conversations in a fun, like non-judgmental way. But I think they're conversations that need to be had. And will we reach a conclusion or an answer? Probably not. But I think they're conversations that need to be had,
For sure. I absolutely love your thought process on this. I think it's great. And I think it's also very valid, right? I was at a point basically my whole life up until maybe a few years ago where I believed everybody on the planet should fucking eat them. And there is a part of me that still believes you should have some experience. Most people that have been a part of research studies say it's in the top 5 most impactful experiences of their life, every one of them. And I would easily put that in there. Now, one of the biggest benefits that I feel is definitely worth looking into and having the conversation about is the mechanism in which psilocybin works in your brain. It's taking your neurotransmitters, and normally they fire to the same spots, right? The electrical patterns in your brain are firing to their predetermined designated spaces. And so when you eat psilocybin, it gets up in there and it starts rerouting the pathways, right? So it's using what it's doing in a lot of cases. They do brain scans and it shows that it's like igniting and lighting up parts of your brain that are damaged by stress and anxiety and depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are things that, I mean, we know have an effect on the brain. And when brain scanned, there are parts that are darkened. After psilocybin experiences, those parts are relit up, right? So for me, that kind of circles back to the hard reset. Now, is it something that can be achieved in the element of can we be introspective and put our egos aside without a substance? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can tell you, I cry now. Like, I look at my kids doing stuff and I'm like, oh my God, my little child that was this helpless little being that I watched come out of a womb is out there choking kids in jiu-jitsu. One of them was called the kindest child in preschool. And I literally shed a tear at her preschool graduation when the teacher told me that. You know, it's like I actually haven't had like a full trip in probably like 2 years, which is probably the longest that I've gone in a while. And it's not that I don't feel like I need it, right? It's like partially time, right? But like also there are elements of things that I'm working through that it's not required. What I need to do right now is focus on certain elements that the psychedelic journey is not the priority. So I do take some microdoses, but that's more of like almost like an antidepressant, right? It's something you're not really even a small enough dose that I'm not expecting to feel anything from. But there is an element where the sun shines just a little bit brighter, you know?
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
but I don't think that any of these things, whether it be cannabis, mushrooms, DMT, ayahuasca, any of it, is the be all end all. It's only a tool, right? And I mean, we can go back thousands of years, and there's even evidence now of, you know, early Christianity using psychedelics in rituals. You know, I mean,
and there's something happening too, man, because I have actually heard heard tale. I haven't actually read the literature on it, but apparently there have been studies where they have taken groups of people and they have administered whatever the drug was, psilocybin or what. I'm not exact on that, but they have administered the psychedelic drug, and this group of people, they were not together, but they actually had the same experience. It's like it was connected. I mean, that to me like blew my socks off. Like, that is, for one, that's freaking wild that you would administer this psychedelic to a group of random individuals and they get a very similar or identical message from that experience. To me, that's interesting, but at the same time, it freaks me out because I'm like, well, who is the messenger? Like, there's without a doubt that with these substances, people are tapping in. I mean, they're tapping into something that we cannot tap into by using our normal brains as they are meant to function in the reality that we live in. And like, they are I would, from what I've heard, they are having interactions with literal beings you could say it was in another dimension, but they're receiving these things. And so, one, that's interesting, but two, it scares the crap out of me because it's like, well, what is this being, and can it be trusted?
so
what do you think about that? Have you heard about that? That type of study?
Absolutely. So what you're talking about is the DMT studies. And I literally just read the book, DMT, The Spirit Molecule, by Rick Strassman, who was the guy that headed up that study. And so you're right, they had a whole group of individuals ranging in different levels of psychedelic experience, different backgrounds, a whole array of different people, and they all had very similar experiences on the similar dosages. Obviously, there's, you know, outliers and elements, but they all had similar experiences. And so when it comes to DMT, that's one that like I actually have been like, I've tried it, but haven't broken through to that level, right? Like there's, you know, like I didn't do it properly. I didn't have anybody teaching me how to do it, right? I actually have a guy I'm going to do an episode with here soon. He's like one of my jiu-jitsu buddies, and he has done DMT hundreds of times. But with it, in that book, they talk about the mechanisms of DMT when we have it. So DMT is actually in almost everything, has levels of it. It's just like what is worth extracting the levels of DMT from, right? Like ayahuasca, there's a vine that grows and it's very rich in it, right? They can synthesize it, I think, from like a certain bark of a tree. Anyway, people have these very similar experiences with it, but our brain actually absorbs it. And the way he describes it is like you're in a desert and you get a bottle of water quenching, like it is quenching your brain. And, you know, we have natural experiences with DMT in our life. And actually, a belief, a part of my spiritual belief and belief about children and life in general actually involves DMT. People always have this life debate on when does life begin. An argument that made sense to me is at 49 days, you get the embryo gets a blast, the first blast of DMT. And that's when there's a certain change in the developmental stage in an embryo from that point. And like every part of like growth and development of a human stems from that. And then you get another big blast of it right when you're coming out of the womb as a baby. And then you get a big blast of it when you die. Now, they also, in this book,
No kidding.
yes, so they call it the spirit molecule. And the idea is that it potentially acts as a carrier for your spirit into the next realm. So when you die, right, like you think about a near-death experience, right? You're in maybe a car crash and everything goes white, and like your body feels like, your spirit feels like it's ripped out of your body and you're going towards the light, right? And then you know, you're there and you come back. It's very comparable to that, apparently. But you're going through something traumatic and your body is about to die potentially, so it's like your spirit, it's carrying your spirit, like your body naturally blasts it out almost to like carry your spirit into whatever the next phase is, you know. And that's like the way he was describing it. I'll send you a copy of the book. I actually also want to send you a gift, another book I have, but I'll send you the Strassman study. It's definitely, I think it's something that's worth reading about. You know, and like I said, with mushrooms, right, it doesn't necessarily have to be like some full huge dose. I think there can be a lot of wisdom gained, even from like a mid-level small dose, you know, something where you're feeling a little bit, but you're not like feeling uncomfortable. But I think the thing is that like when you're in the experience, like I like to drink tea, one, because it calms the stomach, which psilocybin can be a little funky on your stomach digesting, so the tea is beneficial. But it's also beneficial because I could take a sip, give it about 15 minutes. It hits a little bit quicker, see how I feel. Okay, I'm good. I could do a little more, right? And I don't feel out of like touch enough to like not know what I'm doing. Like I'm very aware of what's going on. Like, so at a certain point, it's like, okay, I'm good. I'm good with where I'm at right now, given what it is that I'm looking to do. Like I set an intention, you know, of what it is I'm looking to gain from that experience. I mean, I've had business meetings on mushrooms with my business partner. We've basically locked ourselves in the building and gotten all whacked out. Had a lot of great experiences in that realm. It's up to you and making sure that your setting is proper and knowing what it is you're looking for, and knowing that if you feel uncomfortable at any time, that you have things that can bring you back to the moment, you know? Like, 'cause we can get deep when we're in that realm.
Yeah, I could only imagine, man. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation. It's something I think about often because it is becoming more prevalent and it is becoming more widely accepted as a much better alternative to pharmaceuticals. I just, like I say, the main thing that I struggle with in my mind is can we achieve the same results without the substance? And maybe the answer to that is dependent on the individual.
It might be.
Because I just hear so many things about what you're talking about that, you know, even when you were talking about the connecting, you know, basically carving out these new neural pathways and these dark spots in your brain beginning to open up, and also that just the allowing yourself to feel and cry and see and all that. Like the reason I'm asking these questions is because I feel like, in a certain sense, at least by the way, you know, you're describing it, I'm kind of going through the same things. I know you probably heard that last podcast when I was sitting with Jeremy, and I got blindsided, man. I got blindsided by this thing that, like, and I talked to Jeremy. I was like, dude, what the crap was that? And he was like, well, it's connected now. And so I almost feel like that moment for me was a moment where my brain carved out this new pathway and connected this thing that has now opened up this space in my mind that was black, but now I'm beginning to be able to have more insight into that. And I'm just, it's so interesting to me because it sounds like I was able to achieve that personally. Now, you know, without the use of the substance, but I almost, as we have this conversation, I think more and more along the lines of, I think getting down to the root of it, the answer to that question is probably dependent on the individual. But I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know. It's always, it's in my mind. And I actually just did a truck talk on it that's going to come out next week.
Truck talk,
now,
baby.
The truck talk I did was what's that?
I said truck talk, baby. I love it. Even if Chili doesn't listen to it.
I did the truck talk on specifically on marijuana and alcohol, because people ask me all the time, man, because, you know, people know I'm a Christian. They ask me all the time, well, you know, what do you think about smoking marijuana? I mean, people want my opinion on it as if I'm some moral authority, or as if I'm the judge of anyone. And, you know, it's such a hard question for me to answer, because my personal goal is to create a reality create a reality that I don't need a break from, or like I don't need a head change, like do the work to create a reality that I can confront every single day, and I don't need a drink of alcohol at the end of the day, or I don't need to have something that alters my perspective of reality at the end of the day. Like, that is my personal goal. But should that be everyone's personal goal? Well, of course, because it's mine, I say yes. Like, why? You just put in the work. If something about your life is stressing you out to the point that you need relief at the end of the day from that reality that you're having to live, like, figure out a way to change that part of your reality so that you no longer need a break from it. And also recognize that no matter how good you make your life and your reality, there's still going to be hard times, and confront those hard times head on without even the thought of wanting relief from it. Now, that's just me. That's just me. And I'm learning that I can't project myself on everyone else around me, because they don't have the same mind that I have. Not good or worse. It's just not the same. They don't have the same life experience that I have, good or bad. It's just not the same. And so I'm really careful in approaching these conversations from that perspective. You know, I don't know, man. I just feel like nobody's having these conversations. Like a guy like you that uses these substances is not sitting down with a guy like me that doesn't, and we're not putting our heads together and having a back and forth conversation. And I just think that's missing.
Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong, unless I'm just, it's all one-sided, man.
Well,
it's all one-sided. And these are the fun conversations to have, you know?
Well, and I think also, one, that's a cultural issue with today. People are so divided and like feel like they have to really dig in on their stance. But I'm a pretty open. I understand there's nuance to situations. Everyone is different, and I think that these conversations are important because I'm not trying to necessarily convince you, but I just am just trying to share some of my experience and how it's helped me. And if that's something that might help you, great. I'll tell you what, if you ever decide that you do want to indulge in a little mushroom experience, you let me know. I'm coming down to Rome, Georgia, and I'll help guide you through for the first one. You know what I mean? I got you. I'm well versed.
That'd scare the world out of old Lord C, man. I'm telling you.
Well, that's why we would make sure we could be near the goats. It's a comfortable setting, you know. Trust me, the animals know they want to love you.
I heard that, brother. I heard that. No, it's fun. It's fun getting to go back and forth and just hear the different perspectives. And I was hoping we were going to have time to get into that. And I think we just barely scratched the surface on it with this conversation.
Oh yeah, we'll have to get into another deep dive at another time for sure. I want to be respectful of your time. I know we've hit the 2-hour mark, and I'm so grateful. I just really had like one or two more quick questions before we hop off, if you don't mind.
Yeah, brother, send it.
So one, so I know for me at 35, right, and I'm active. I train jiu-jitsu almost every day. I know you see I've been putting some miles in, right, and I feel like it's hard. I'm going through some hard times on the soreness and hitting 35, but you do some of these long races. I know like Goggins uses that guy Hippensteel's program. Have you used his program for recovery? I know it's or do you have some other system you like to use to keep yourself limber in that way?
Man, that's a great question, and I have personally not reached a point in my life where I have had to seek a really intentional recovery type of process or program. When we're talking about physical, I don't know what it is, but I have been blessed to not have had any injuries whatsoever, physically, in terms of broken bones or torn tendons or things like that, throughout my entire career, both in ultra running and lifting weights or in the SEAL teams. And so maybe that's because of the lifestyle that I live. Maybe it's just partly because I've been lucky. I don't know, but for me, I push really, really hard, man. But like, I also eat really good food. I am really, really picky and intentional about my sleep. Like, I try to go to sleep every night at the same time, and wake up at the same time every day. I have set up a space or an environment in my home where, my bedroom is a place to sleep, and everything in there promotes that. I spend more money on food than anything else in my life. I mean, it's astronomical, the money I spend on food, and that's just really good grass-fed meats. And we grow a massive garden at our house. So we grow a lot of what we eat. All of my foods are whole foods, all organic. And I really focus on those things. So but as far as like stretching, I don't really do a lot of that. One thing that I have added to, I guess you could call it a recovery routine, is the sauna. I spend at a minimum 20 to 30 minutes a day in a sauna. And I also, a few times a week, will use the cold plunge in conjunction with the sauna. And I really feel like there's a lot of benefit to that, physically and mentally. You sit in that freaking sauna at 190 degrees for 30 minutes, and then you get out and you get in that cold water. Dude, when I get out of that cold water, it alters my mind. Like I can hear things different.
I feel like a
My
straight
vision
savage.
is different. It's freaking crazy, man. So for me, recovery is just sleeping very intentionally, really making an investment into the foods that I eat, and then the sauna and the cold. And I'm sure there's going to be a time in my life when the old body just gets so kind of, gets enough age on it where I'm going to have to even start layering more things like a good stretching routine, foam rolling and things like that. But at the point that I'm at now, and really throughout my entire athletic career, I have not had to do any of that. And I've been able to sustain a pretty high level of fitness and stay injury free. And all that being said, now, I am also a very deliberate person. So when I'm out running, I make sure that I do my best to make sure I'm not turning my ankles or jacking my knees up. And I know accidents happen, but I'm very conscious of my steps. I'm very conscious of having the proper gear. I do my research into figuring out the right shoes I need to be wearing. Everything that kind of adds to the longevity of my ability to do what I do. So that's where I'm at right now with recovery, man.
Okay, man. Thank you. That's a great answer. And so my last question is, how do you feel that people struggling to find meaning in their lives can identify a calling?
People struggling to find meaning in their lives, how do they identify a calling? Man, what pops into my head, first and foremost, is you need to be able to be honest with yourself. Because I think a lot of the reason people never figure out what they're called to do is they try to force themselves into something that the world says is worthwhile or is sexy, or they try to force themselves into some box that the world says is meaningful. And don't force yourself into that box. Be honest with yourself about what is it that you are passionate about, right? What is it that freaking keeps you up at night? And going back to putting this in a very practical manner, if the thing that keeps you up at night is the fact that your grass isn't cut perfectly, it might be your calling to freaking cut people's grass perfectly for them. But the world don't, but that's not sexy. So that couldn't be your calling, right? No, man, that might be your calling. Be honest with yourself. What are you passionate about? What keeps you up at night? What actually means something to you, right? And then also be honest with yourself about what you're good at doing. What are you gifted? I'm gifted at being a teacher. That's my gift, and I'm honest with myself about it. I know that that's what I'm good at. So that is, and I'm passionate about it. And so that's what my calling is. But don't try to fit yourself into to a box, and don't try to let the world judge the things that are really important to you, and the things that you're passionate about, and the things that you love to do. Don't let the world say that those things aren't important, because it ain't about what other people think. It ain't about the world, man. And that to me is just what came straight off the top of my head,
Man,
brother.
that's great. That's absolutely perfect. How can people support the mission, get in touch with you, find you, get involved?
Yeah, man. If you guys ever want to come out and train, just go to 3of7project.com, and everything's linked there on the website. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram. It's just Chad Wright 278.
Perfect. I would highly recommend going to train. Um, Chad, I can't thank you enough, man. It was a great conversation, and we definitely need to have another one diving deeper into some of these topics.
I agree, man. I agree. I knew it was going to be a good time. We covered a lot of ground, and I just hope the listeners were able to stay with us as we kind of bounce from one thing to the next. They shouldn't get bored listening to this episode. That's for sure,
Oh,
man.
no.
They got plenty to chew on.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it, man. I'm going to shut us down. Appreciate you.